Hi everyone, I'm Pamela and today I'm going to be sharing with you how to build the Meta Template Picker from scratch. So the Meta Template Picker automatically selects the correct template according to the trigger phrase that you put in the name of the link, so you don't have to use the insert template module whenever you want to trigger a template for a certain type of file. So here's an outline of the rest of the video. First, I'm going to go through how you can build a basic meta templater, and then I'll show you how you can add this and extra stuff you can do with prompts. And also how you can take advantage of all these properly tagged notes for tag-based organization using data view. So first, what is the meta templater? Brian Jenks first coined this term, and he adds symbols in front of his links, so it tells Obsidian what kind of note it's supposed to be. So for example, a book source note would have this curly bracket in front of it, and then if it's a note that's supposed to be about a person, it would have this @ symbol in front of it, and if it's a tweet, it would have an exclamation mark in front of it. It's most useful if you have types of files that you use a lot, such as meeting notes or video templates if you make a lot of videos. So here's how I would create a meeting note. For example, I wanted to make a meeting note about the Nix project. This is what the link would look like. And then here you can see that I have a few different types of meetings. So if I wanted a meeting on Thursday, this would create a note on the Thursday of this week instead of a note today. And here's all the metadata that's automatically loaded in. And here's the structure I like for my meeting notes. It's great to use a meta templater, which looks something like this, because then you can have templates easily automatically load in. And I do this a lot for my video templates. So a video template will look like, for example, I wanted to make a video about my habit framework. I would put vid dash and then the actual name of the video. And once I click this, it will load in all the metadata on top. And then I will be able to dump my ideas here. And this is the rest of the structure that I usually want to have for my videos. The meta templater makes it easy to load in metadata, which is really useful if you use tag-based organization systems. So this is my mode YouTuber and my project YouTube videos. So from here, if I decide to go to my YouTube dashboard, which is here, this is what my YouTube video dashboard looks like. I can roll up tasks, which videos I'm currently working on, and just have an overview of what needs to be done for my YouTube channel. So Brian Jenks adds this symbol in front of his links, so it tells Obsidian what kind of note this link is supposed to create. And essentially, you're trying to automatically trigger a template based on the name of the file using the meta templater. I don't like to use symbols because it's kind of hard to remember, and it also limits the number of different templates you can automatically trigger. So instead, I changed it to a trigger phrase in front of a dash. So if I wanted to create a YouTube video plan, I would use vid, and then I would put the title of the video, for example, Moonlander keyboard. Once I click this, it will automatically go to renaming the file, and then it would use the title that I put. It removes the trigger phrase and it renames it. So as you can see, once I've clicked it, it would rename the files according to my naming convention. And then it would fill in the metadata, and it would fill in the structure of the note, such as the task list and where I want to ideate title and thumbnails. Another example would be if I wanted to create a meeting note for my Thursday meeting. So first I would do mn dash, and then I would have the topic of the meeting. So if I had project updates, which is just a very general meeting, I would click on this and it would open up a prompt, because there's a few different types of meetings I have throughout the week. And so I have a parent trigger phrase that opens a prompt, which makes it easy for me to just select which template I want instead of having to remember the individual trigger phrase for each template. Okay, so opening up my meeting note and selecting this. And this is basically the same as the video note in where it puts in the metadata, and then here's the structure that I usually like to have for my meeting notes. Having a meta templater is great because you can just have templates easily load in. So I do this a lot for my video templates, and it also makes it easy to do metadata since I prefer a tag-based organization structure instead of folder-based organization. And even before you create a note, you know what a note is. So if you see Brian Jenks and his workflow, he has these uncreated notes that are basically Zettelkasten note. So if I open a local graph view, you can see that my Zettelkasten note for Pay Yourself First is actually linked to a few daily notes and also linked to a few uncreated Zettelkasten notes like value yourself for more than your productivity, and like how we treat ourselves is how we treat other people. So these notes are not created, but because I already have the Z dash tagging for them, I know that this is a Zettel note, and like I can filter for that in the graph view. Okay, so if I wanted to filter for notes that were the Zettel notes, I would do this filter, and then I would be able to see, okay, so here are the notes that I haven't created, and here are the notes that I have created. And in the overall graph view, I would be able to like find a few more. Okay, so neighbor links, turn on. Let me just straighten this out. Once you see that a graph node has a lot of other Zettel nodes created to it, that could like prompt you to work on that node. So if I go to your best hour should be for your professional project, you can see that I've actually worked on this node already, and then it links to like a few different other things that I wanted to work on. Templater allows you to move the notes into certain folders, and this makes it easy to find certain notes. For example, I would move all my system notes into a systems folder so that I can easily click on my dashboards to find like, here's my YouTube dashboard, and it'll just show me like a roll up of tasks that I should be working on and like projects that I'm working on for YouTube videos. For the rest of my notes, I don't want to move them because I feel like having a folder structure actually adds like a mental burden. I prefer not to have a folder-based organization system, and instead I prefer like a tag-based organization system. So I don't want to use folders for most of my notes, and I prefer them to be just like in the general vault. And you can also use supercharged links to get this like symbol in front and behind your note based off what type of note it is and the status of the note. So if I change this note to completed, for example, you'd see that this turns to green. Okay, so how to build a basic meta templater. I'm going to be showing you how I do this in the Potato Vault, which is a starter kit that I uploaded on GitHub, and I will update it with the meta templater in version 2 of it. So first off, you're going to need a few templates in a template folder. So this is my template folder, and I have a default note template here, which just dates the note with its current date, adds a blank status to it. And these are just various fields that you can decide to fill in for a default note. Then the Potato Vault already has the weekly review template, daily note template, and a monthly review template. These are like included. So I'm going to need to create another note, which I'm just going to do with Command N, create new note. I think we can make a simple Zettel template. So I'm going to first drag this here, then rename it as a simple Zettel template. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have a certain note structure, and I tag my metadata with like mode and like what kind of thing it is. So I have a tagging convention that basically looks like, my tagging convention has a few different type of notes, and what we're looking at here is Zettel notes. So I usually have Zettelkasten notes that are either my own thoughts or like they're based off some source material. They could be questions, they could be connections, but right now I'm going to do a very basic one that just assumes that you are inspired by some source material. Based off this naming convention template, I'm going to add in like Here are my thoughts, reflections, and then here's a source. And then now with this simple Zettel template, you're going to want to add in like some templater code. So first you're gonna wanna add in these opening and closing brackets. That tells templater you wanna execute some JavaScript code because there's this star. The dash and the underscore help remove white space so that you don't have like white space right at the top of your note that you're not supposed to have. So first you want to get the title and then you want to process it so that you remove the trigger phrase. So assuming that we're going to use z dash and then the name of Zettel, you probably do want to remove this z dash and replace it with something else. First, you want to clean the title. So variable clean title equals, so you could just write a code here to clean up the function, but I found that sometimes you have a note that has the trigger phrase and you want to rename it, but sometimes there isn't a trigger phrase. You're just triggering the template creation in a note that you didn't name using this convention. So I think it's easier to just have like a really comprehensive function that fixes all of these problems. And I have written some templater JavaScript code for this, so I'm going to show you how to use that instead. So first you're going to need the user script function that I have uploaded on GitHub. You can just download it from the link below or just copy and paste it. So you're going to want to go to your templater plugin and then scroll down to user script functions. They have script files folder location and you can decide where you want to put it. But for me, this is going to be in the meta part of my vault. And I'm going to put it under a plugins folder and then call it templater scripts. So here I'm going to go new folder and call it 92 plugins and then like new folder templater scripts. So as you can see here, this is the exact same folder structure as here. I'm going to come here and I'm going to show in System Explorer. Right. So let me bring this over. Okay. So this is the templater scripts. So you're going to want to get this from wherever you download it and just move it into here. And now if you go back to templater, you can check user scripts and it'll detect one user script. I can show you what this looks like. So basically it's JavaScript code that just ensures that if there's no dash in the title, just remove any white space from the current title. So I'm considering two scenarios. One, you're triggering this template in a note. So instead of using the meta template picker, you're just treating it like a normal template. And that's when this part of the code kicks in. And then if there is a dash in the title, you want to split it by the dashes, and then you should be able to just take the second part of the title. That's assuming you only have one dash. Sometimes you have multiple dashes. Like if you added a date or just like other dashes in the title, then you want to like do something else over here. So clean title should be called with tp.user.getTitle snippet, and then you want to give it the input of the current file title, and then you want it to give you a clean title. Then now you want to decide how you want to name your note. So here I have Z, like big Z for Zettels that are already created, and then I'll put a dash and space. And then now you want to add this clean title, but you don't just add it like this. You need to use backticks. So let's surround it with backticks first. And then you want to make sure you have a money sign and curly brackets around the variable. Oh God. Okay, so this is how you add it, and then you add a semicolon at the end. Now finally, you want to take this new title that you have and you want to rename the note. So you need to use await tp.file.rename, And then this title should just be done in the same way. So I'm just gonna copy this and then I'll just paste this. Okay, so this is the basics of how to rename the note. And you might also want to add aliases for like how you want the note to appear. So in that case, you would need to use the 3 dashes for the metadata. And I'm just gonna put that here. So this is what it looks like. And then inside you want to write aliases. And then now you want to have the clean file title, because I just want the alias to be name of Zettel without the Z dash or other Z dashes for the naming convention, so that if you have unlinked mentions of the Zettel, you can find it, because usually when you're just typing, you might not remember to make it into a link. So now you want to take the same opening brackets and the same closing brackets. You can just change it to dash actually for white space control. We put a dash to trim one new line after, and we put an underscore to trim all white space after the command. And this is like an additional new line. Then here you want to just get the clean title without all this extra stuff. So in order to put it into the note, you're going to use tr plus equals, which means add this to the tr variable, which we print it here. And then you want to do the same thing that you did here, which is tp.user.get title snippet, and just put it like here. And this will help you create a Zettel note, but it'll be best if I can just test it, right? So I'm gonna go to the daily note, which let's just keep all this. And this is how we test the Zettel, but first you need to get the meta templater working. So now nothing works. But if I do insert template module and I try it on simple Zettel template, it should create, I forgot something, okay. So for the aliases, you need to make sure that you give it like an extra new line in between the aliases ending here and the mode here. So, okay, let's go back to the test note z-name Zettel, and if I do insert template module and simple Zettel template, it does rename it to z-name of Zettel, and I still have the aliases name of Zettel, and here's all my metadata and today's date and structure of the note that I wanted. Okay, so now that we have a simple Zettel template, let's just create another template. Basic note would be like a source note. So I'm just going to create another new note with command N, then write source template. How about book source template? I'm just going to create it and then talk about it. Okay, so this is going to be the renaming of the note, and I want to append it with book source in front, and then title. Mode, you might be reading different books based off different modes, so I'm not going to fill this in here, but I'm going to put in like the front part. And then now we have source book, which is part of my naming convention for how I name books. Okay, so this is how I name my sources. So I have source as the parent tag, and then within it I have book, paper, conference, and like the corresponding emoji to make it easy to find. So source book, and it might be linked to a certain project. I might be reading this book for a project, and here's the topics of what the book is about, and then like just a status blank because I haven't got around to processing it. This will just be like the date I'm reading the book, the summary of a book, the information about the book, and then like my book notes. Okay, so now that I have these two simple templates, I can create a basic meta templater. I'm gonna delete this test note. Okay, so let's just create a new note called meta templater picker. Meta templater picker or meta template picker? How about meta template picker? Okay. So for the meta template picker, I'm just gonna drag this into templates and start setting up how to use it first. So you want to have a folder to create new notes in, and for me, I prefer to just create everything outside of a folder and just in like my base Potato Vault. So when you come to files and links, you want to make sure that your default location for new notes is Vault folder, Or you could just say like in folder specified below and put slash, which would have the same effect, but this would be a little bit more clean. So just put it in Vault folder. Then now you want to go to templater settings, because first you want to tell Obsidian to create all notes in the Vault folder. Then you want to tell templater that if a note is created in the Vault folder, then you want to first call this template, and this template is the meta template picker. So this meta template picker will be called, and then you need to have the logic of, is it a trigger note? What kind of note should I create based off the name? And I'm going to start with the same opening and closing brackets that we did before. So note that this one has a star here. This star allows you to execute JavaScript execution command. And this is the documentation for a basic if-else. And actually, it would be easier for you to see it if you just did backticks and JavaScript and put these things inside. You just need to remember to remove these later when you're actually testing out the note. So you have this and this opening and closing brackets, and then within them, you want to do your code of finding the trigger phrase. So first, you want to know whether or not this is one of your name-based template triggers. So if it includes a dash, you can kind of assume that it is. And hence, I'm going to say that if template.file.includes this dash, then it's probably going to be a trigger-based file. So trigger, so now I can extract the trigger, and the trigger should be, I want to get the template title, and then I want to split it by the dash. And then now you have an array of strings, and you want to get the first one, which would be the trigger phrase. And after you get the trigger, it could be like uppercase or lowercase, and I want it all to be the same. So if I have like z dash name is Vital, and I have z dash, wait, let me just fix this. So if I have z dash name is Vital and z dash name is Vital, I want these both to trigger the Zettel template. So I'm going to take this and I'm gonna say, take what you've extracted and then turn it all to lowercase, which is like a JavaScript function that will process it for you. So if it doesn't include this dash, then I'm going to assume that there is no trigger. So otherwise, variable trigger is an empty string. Okay, so now we have the basic logic for extracting the trigger. Okay, so you can actually make comments, and I'm just gonna do this. So like extracting the trigger if there is one. Okay, so we have, this is the basics of extracting the trigger, and now what are we gonna do next? So next we wanna go like default notes if not trigger note, right? So like imagine you're just creating a new note with command and you don't want it to trigger anything. So you can just say that first. Okay, so if it is a trigger note, then check which note. So if it is a variable trigger, then you want to check what note it could possibly be. So you would need these opening and closing brackets again. I'm just gonna copy this and then get rid of the comment. And here's my like execution bracket. And I should say if trigger equals the specific phrase that I'm using, like Z. You might also want to trim this actually. So you want to do this. You want to make it to lowercase and you want to make sure trim so that your phrase doesn't have additional white spaces. Then if the trigger equals this, and then you need the opening curly brackets. And now it's where it gets a little bit weird. I'm going to close the brackets. Close brackets. Okay, so now I've closed the brackets and we can look at how you do within here. You're going to need the opening and closing brackets again like before, but you're going to remove this star, so you're telling it that it's not JavaScript code but templater code, and then you're going to say tp.file.include, which is how you trigger the template. Oh wait, tp.file.title. Oh my god. So yeah, you wanted to check whether the title included a dash, and now you're just going to run tpfile.include, which this one checks whether or not there is a dash. And this one just tells templater to trigger a template. And if the trigger is Z, then the template that you want to use is simple Zettel template, right? So this should work now, but first you have this, and then you would want to make sure that you have an else. If the trigger is not Z, then you want it to trigger something else, right? So else, and let me close the bracket first. Okay, else and closing bracket. So if it's a default note, then what do you want to do? Well, you want to do something like tpfile.include, but now instead of simple Zettel template, you're going to go for default note template. So now that we have the code, I'm going to remove these and put this up here. And now we're going to test it, which, okay. New note. Let's go here, and then let's just say I took Z, name is Zettel. Oh, it's giving me an error. Okay. View toggle. tpfile.title.include is not a function. Wait, includes. Okay, includes. Sorry. Like JavaScript has an includes that I'm trying to use. And okay, let's just do this again. The meta template picker only runs the first time the file is created, so you want to make sure that, like, if it didn't work, you delete the file and try again. And now it works. So it didn't rename because it was already correctly renamed. And here's name of title, everything. And just to make sure that this thing really works, I'm going to delete this current file. I'm going to add in like a bunch of white space and see if it still gets me Z name of Zettel and renames it properly. So yes, it does rename it properly because I checked that the trigger is sent to lowercase, it's trimmed. So the trim removes the white space around it. Okay, now that that works, let's try a new note. So just Command N, and look, it still creates a new note with the default note template, which is great. You can try like a random note. It should also create a note with just the title in it. And that's exactly what it did. So yay, I'm gonna delete these. You should see that they were created like in your Vault folder. Okay, so delete. And now let's go back to the meta templater and add in a bit more logic. So you can just come here and you want to take the opening and closing brackets here. So you might as well just like copy and paste. And first off, you need the closing brackets, right? To close off this function. And then now you need to think, okay, so if then else, if the trigger is, if the trigger has book source node, let's just say that all source nodes should start with S, right? And then book would be the book source node. So this logic is done. I'm going to add in the curly brackets. And else if trigger equals this, I can just copy like this part. And then if it's a book source node, I want to do book source template. Okay. And this logic would work. You don't need to do anything else. Basically, you can copy and paste this for whatever other templates you want to add in. And let me just test that it works. So I'm going to go to my daily note, and then I'm going to say that, let's just say this is book, S book, dash, right? Random note. And then look, now I have a properly renamed note that says it's a book source, and here's the title of the book. And then here's the metadata, it correctly tagged the kind of note it should be, and here's the note structure. Okay, so now that I have all these notes, I want to add more notes in. So let's just say that you came here and you want to add more notes in. You can just do this. And then instead of sbook, you want svid, which is video source template. Okay. So video source template, you can click this. Okay. I click video source template. I'll basically copy like the book source template and then pulling video source template in, click here. And then instead of book source, I will call it video source. And then instead of source book, I'll call it source video. So let's go with video and then G emoji monitor. Yeah, something like laptop. So source video laptop. Well, honestly, I think I could use like a big video laptop instead. But yes, so source video laptop and then check that everything else is correct. So it might not be source info. You might just be like video and then you put source to add a link there. And then you have notes. Everything seems fine. In this case, I wouldn't really bother to add aliases because I rarely type out the exact long name of the video by itself. So I won't bother adding this part, but you can add it if you want. And just to test that it works, we have svid 2022 Zettelkasten. Yeah, so let's just click this and you see that it does sort of rename it as video source. It tags it correctly and everything's working. So that's it for the basic Meta template picker. Now I'm just going to show you some extra things that you may want to do so that you don't get weird errors. So like, this is all assuming that this is either a trigger note or not a trigger note and hence doesn't have dash. Let's just create a new portion here saying, in case it's not a Meta template picker note, what am I going to do? But in this case, I'm gonna have to turn this into an else if, right? So that I can have another if here. So I'm gonna like copy this and change this to if. And what's the if? So if the file title, like what's the different type of notes you can have? For me, I have my weekly review notes. So if you see, starts with weekly review. So just checking like the periodic notes and how you name your weekly and monthly review. Mine has like weekly review and monthly review, so I can just like directly use that to ensure that it's not a problem. So like weekly review, I'm going to include the weekly review template instead. And then if it starts with monthly review, so I'm gonna have to get like another else if trigger, and I'm basically gonna take this and say else if it starts with a monthly review, then I'm going to include, yeah, this is going to have to add in the end bracket. Okay, so if it's not a Meta template picker note, I'm going to have starts with weekly review or starts with monthly review. Then I'm going to know that the templates that I'm going to use should just be like monthly review and weekly review templates. You could also do something for like the daily note, but since I nearly never ever create it like that, it's not a problem for me. My daily notes are always created with Command T, so I'm not really worried, or by the calendar, which automatically does like the correct daily note template, so I don't bother adding that here. Then other things that you might want to do is just like for convenience, you might want to say that if I put the word template inside, it should be a template note. And so you want to find like templates for templates. If I started with template, for example. So if TP, let's just say that TP file.title includes template. So this is just checking. If it includes template, I'm going to assume that this is a template note. And then I'm going to use template for templates. This needs to be created first, and it gave me an error because it came here, but there wasn't a template for templates yet. So in template for templates here, you're going to want to pull this in here, and then going to be the same logic as previously. So where you have the clean title here, and this is what you get with the other files. So like we can go to book source notes and just copy this part first. So now that you have the renaming done, you're going to just want to leave the title alone. Like we're going to get rid of this 2 parts, and instead of renaming it, you're going to want to, let's say that you want to have a file path because you need to move your template notes into this template and you don't want to do it manually. So what you can do instead is just based off the folder name, you can call this, okay, so 10 templates is where I put it. And then you want to add the existing title. So I can just add title. This is actually entirely unnecessary. You can just have like remove this line and put clean title here. But I like it all to have a certain format. So now await tp.file.move instead of rename. And you're going to tell it to bring you to that file path. So I'm going to go here and say my file path is, file path is this, and okay. I'm going to assume that the clean title doesn't remove template actually, so just leave it as it is. Okay. So now you're going to want some metadata here, and honestly, I don't have metadata for my templates because I'm assuming that it's like a clean file that I want to make into a template, but you could just do like this in case you want to add metadata to it. Okay, so I'm going to go to here, and then I'm going to test out my new code, which is going to say like, okay, let's say that I want to do journal template, right? This should trigger the template folder. So if I click this, oh, okay, view, toggle available tools, trying to build this else. Okay, bad else template. Else should be here. So if else, if. Oh, I forgot to add this bracket here. Okay, so delete current file. And I'm gonna click this, and it should create, yes, an empty journal template file with this, and it's also moved the journal template into the correct note. I'm going to close this. So what do I want my journal template to look like? Let's say that I want to do the same renaming thing. So I'm just going to grab like the book source template, copy this, paste here, and the title is just going to be journal. But since it's journal, I probably do want to date it. So I'm going to add another space here, and then I'm going to add tp.date.now. And then you just want the usual date time format that we use for all Obsidian notes. And it's still going to rename it. And now I'm just going to add in some metadata. So you're going to add in like mode. And let's say you want mode life, I guess. Then since its kind is going to be journal-plan, let's give it like a drink emoji. So drink. Yeah, tropical drink. Okay, so let's say journal plan tropical drink. And then you're gonna add in like what topics. I don't really have a topic for it. I guess that'll depend on what topic I get. And then we're gonna go with date, status, and summary. Okay. Then I'm just gonna leave the rest blank because when I journal, I will know like what I want to add in then. So that's done. And now you need to add in your new journal template, which I'm going to make a little bit nicer because this kind of bothers me. Okay, so journal template, you're gonna add the new journal template to your meta template picker. So how are you gonna add it? It is a trigger note, so I'm just gonna add it under here, and I just need to like create else if, right? So let's copy that and paste it here. Journal can just be J, and then journal template. So you can actually take this and like double it in case your trigger is not J but journal. In this case, both J-something and journal-something would work for journaling. And this is good because sometimes you can't remember the exact trigger phrase and you can just have like the entire phrase instead of the one letter that you assign to it. So this is like all I really need to do for the basic meta template picker. And now if you want to stay for like how to do meta template picker prompts, I'm going to show you with the source templates. So you have book source, video source, and then you might have like podcast source, course source, etc., etc. And what you probably want to do is have an overall parent template. So like, let's say that you copy this thing here and you say that you want trigger is asked to be for a source prompt template. Okay, so let's start. Source prompt template. Source prompt template, and I'm just gonna click this to create the source prompt template. I'm gonna remove all this. This is just going to be more templater code. So I'm gonna use the opening and closing brackets first. This is going to be JavaScript code, so this is what it looks like. And you're going to want to create a file type variable, and then you're going to want to ask the system for a prompt. So you can go tp.system. You're going to go with tp.system.suggester, which expects a list of text strings to offer as options, and then a list of text strings to be like the assigned variable to file type based off the option that you have given it. And then it asks if you want true or on cancel, and you probably want to put false for that. And then for the placeholder, it's the question that's going to be asked to you. So I think it'll be easier if I just show you. First, you're gonna want to do this, and then you want to like decide what kind of templates you want. So we have book source and we have video source. And you might want to add like more different source templates for now. For now, these are like the two templates we have, right? So book source and video source, copy. And then you want to put this here. You're gonna like copy and paste this again, because that's just going to be the variables that we're using. And then now you want to put false, because we don't want it to throw on cancel. If it cancels, I just want it to assume that this is a normal note and like leave it alone. So now's the question. For me, I just say, which template do you want to use? Okay, so this is the entire line you need, and you can add more to these two lists as you wish. And now we're going to go for the logic. It's going to look very much like this. So I'm just going to copy like something like this, and let's move here. If you want to start with an if, and it's still going to be a JavaScript code. So if trigger equals, and then here's where you take this book source and you put it here, except not trigger, you want file type. So if file type equals book source, then you include the book source template. If file type equals video source, so copy paste, video source, then you want to include the video source template. And then now you have else, right? So you don't need any of this. You have else, and I can get rid of the comment too. So else, what kind of template do you want to use? I would just go for like default node template, and that would be it. So this is the entirety of the prompt code. And now it's time to check whether or not it works, right? So let's say this is S, but you might also want it to be like source, just in case. Let's go back to our current daily note. And then source, the courage to be disliked, for example. So that's just an example from like something I was creating before, but source, the courage to be disliked. So I click this, then it's gonna ask me, okay, what template do you want to use? And I would click book source. And now I have the metadata and the note structure that I expect for book source. Okay, so this is about it. And I'm just gonna stop here. I might make a video on how to use what you have made, like how to do automated tagging and rolling up of meeting tasks. But basically, if you want to organize or find notes, you can now search for them based off the note type that you have. I'm just going to create like a brief example of how to do that and get like book, the courage not to dislike, and like let's just say we have book, how to not die alone, and just like leave it like this as book. Okay, I'm gonna click this, and okay. Now that I have two of these, and let's just say Book source, The Courage to be Disliked and How Not to Die Alone. So if I go here and I just give it like Courage Not to be Disliked is about valuing yourself. Okay? And How Not to Die Alone is about dating like a scientist. So now that I have these two, I'm going to go to my data view page. Okay, I'm gonna create a new folder called 00 system. And 00 system is going to have like one example note of list of books. It's gonna be a processing page. So like books. Okay, so mode, let's just say mode is /other. I use this for any notes that are kind of like Obsidian notes. And then kind is going to be system meta processing. I'm gonna get rid of this date. All right, so for your default notes, you might wanna put this date now in square brackets because then you have the linked note to today's date instead. But for now, I'm just gonna get rid of that. And then summary, I'm just gonna document this note by saying this is like shows a list of books that I have read. So let's say that you want book list and we have data view table. I want table topics, status, summary, and then I want from source book and not from archive. You usually want like an ignore list. Right now it doesn't matter because this is where I'm default. So you just have like the book source, the courage not to dislike, and how not to die alone. You have summary over here. Actually, you might want summary all the way in front. So this is how you do tag-based organization. And you might want to say that list of books I read by source book, which would kind of include this file, bring your processing list in. So what you need to do is do and not system meta. See, it filters out the system meta utility because you have the parent tag of I don't want all system meta. And then usually I would sort it by the modified time descending. And this is a nice like view. I can show you what it looks like in my actual vault. I do this for some paper summaries over here. Like you see this. These are paper summaries where I actually wrote down like some information. All books processing page. So this will be a processing page for all the books that I have. And you can see that these are like fan fictions that I've read, some actual like non-fiction books, and then projects that I'm interested in and like authors of the various books. And yeah, this is mostly from Readwise, and these are more of like Zettel's about a book. So it still has kind source book because I didn't like separate source from Zettel. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for staying to the end.